Planning Commission meeting to order. Should I stand for pledge of allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Stands one justice for all.
Motion to adopt the agenda. I'll second. 8 seconds to adopt the agenda. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
And that was the amended agenda, right? Make sure we're amended.
On the February 24th, 22 meeting minutes. Look for approval of them.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, second to approve the February 24th meeting. Next, incremental district item number 6.
Who made the motion to approve the agenda, sir? Second. My fault, I'm sorry. Yes, sir. Thank you.
I'm going to open up the public hearing, tax increment district number 6.
And with that, I will introduce our consultants from Ellers. We've got Phil Costin and Carrie and Alan from Ellers. They are consultants for helping us create these complicated tax districts that we wouldn't be able to do on our own. So with that said, Bob, you did open up the public hearing, and then I'll go ahead.
All right. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Phil Costin with Ellers, and to her, Harry Allen with Ellers as well. If you recall, last year we were setting up TIDs number 4 and 5. 4 was the housing development down in Becker. You can see, we drove by, glad to see activity down there. The second was here in the downtown for another housing development. This is a little bit different. We've been working with city staff on putting together what will be TID number 6. This will be an industrial district, meaning it's really geared towards industrial properties. And it's really geared around 2 things. One is Titan Industries expansion project, helping them with that project. I'll talk about how we're going to help with that. And then second, there's some stormwater improvements needed in that general area that are going to be financed through the TID fund. So those are the 2 projects that really drove this, and then we'll talk about what else goes into this. So maybe a reminder for the group, this is the only public hearing held by Planning Commission. Council does not hold a public hearing. We held a initial meeting of the Joint Review Board, which is a representative of the school, county, technical college, and the city, and a citizen member organizational meeting at 4:30 today. And then today there's the public hearing. If Plan Commission approves it, you have a resolution that comes after the public hearing. It'll go to the city council, and council action will occur on September 12th. The right date, December 11th. Oh, 12th. The 12th. Okay. And then if they approve it, it'll go back to that joint review board for final action. So this is the first of 3 approvals needed for the tax increment district. So in the world of TIF, this is pretty simple as far as what we deal with on a normal basis, in that there's not a lot of moving parts here. We have a relatively small area, which is about 21 acres. So if you have the plan in front of you, I think it'll be up on the screen as well. If you go to page 7 of the plan, I do have an extra couple of copies if somebody wants a hard copy. We'll take that. Also a hard copy. All right, on page 7, you can see the project plan area identified in the black line, kind of circular. Titan Industries is in the blue, and they are going to be expanding. Directly to the south of that is where the stormwater improvement will be, and shown by Chad there. That's a needed improvement to serve not just Titan, but also other businesses in that area. We drew the boundary as we did because there is also the potential for other expansions and or some other development that could occur. You can see there's some vacant parcels that are identified. They're relatively small, but they could still see an expansion and or a new business move into that area. So the driver is Titan and their expansion, the stormwater improvement, but we also have a modest amount of road improvements that are needed in this area that'll be paid for also through the tax increment district. So what the plan with Titan is they're looking at a expansion. What they have identified as a value of 1.7 million. Because all over the state. One thing I do know about industrial development, what they are going to put into it, I'm not doubting it'll be $1.7 million, probably plus, is that's not where the value is going to come out. The value will be a significantly less number, and that's just state assessed property. That's kind of what happens. So we're expecting about 40 cents on the dollar, about $680,000 that will be realized in the way of new value, actual increment. That increment is what the city uses and collects taxes on to be able to pay for the stormwater and the road improvements that we're talking about. There's also an agreement, tentative agreement at this point, not finalized. There's a development agreement being worked on with Titan that would call for them to receive $150,000 of that increment that I talked about coming back to their company through what's called a municipal revenue obligation, which is really just money coming back. Once taxes are paid, a portion of it goes back to the company. They pay the full tax bill, and again, a small portion goes back. 50% is going back to the company, up to $150,000. So if the value ends up being higher than 680, which is what we project in our plan, that just means that the actual district will be closed out earlier. We're not increasing the money that goes to them. That's going to stay stagnant. But the agreement is 150,000. So what we have identified in the project plan, I'm going to jump around a little bit in the plan. On page 3 is the executive summary of the plan. Description of the district, industrial, very simple. This is an industrial area. We expect industrial development to incur manufacturing, 21.4 acres. As far as project costs, we are looking at a total of about $305,000. $150 goes to Titan, $130 for the stormwater, $25 for some road improvements, and what's left is kind of built-in incentives that could be provided to another business or if Titan does another expansion. It's just providing flexibility for the city to react to potentially another company that may move into that area. Because it's in the plan doesn't mean it gets spent. It still goes through the same process of any expenditure in the city, but it makes it eligible to come out of the TID fund. So we have built a little room in here in case something else comes forward and the city has the ability to react to that. Identified the 680,000 under incremental valuation, 680 coming from Titan, could be higher than that. But we do show that there's going to be some future investment in the area, an extra 250. We don't know where that'll come from, and it may not be, but likely something over a 20-year period is going to occur out there. So we do build in a little bit there as well. Under expected termination of district, we are allowed up to 20 years through an industrial type district, and we're expecting that this will pay for itself within 19 of those 20 years. Again, if that value is higher, it'll shorten up the life. So if you go to page number 10 and 11, there are 5 parcels, I believe 6 parcels out there. 6 parcels out there with a value. Those parcels are $2,880,000 and change. So why is that important? That's the base value. That's what's there today. And the other taxing jurisdictions, the school, the county, and the technical college, will still get their piece of the pie, their share of that tax bill, that 2.8 million. That will always be paid, so they don't lose out on that. What is going to happen is the value is going to increase when Titan expands. And the difference between that 2.88 million and what it becomes, that's what stays with the city. That's increment. and that stays with the city, goes into a separate fund, and that's what's gonna pay for the stormwater and the road and the incentives. Okay, so it's not to come out of the levy. It's not to come out of general borrowing. It's not to come out of utilities. It should come straight out of the TID fund and be segregated, so it's a kind of an internal financing program. On page number, talked about the project costs already a little bit, but on page number 20, Chad, is the actual project costs spelled out a little more clearly of what they are. Again, the driver really is the stormwater and road improvements needed in this area. And then Titan, the incentive that goes to Titan as well to help with their expansion. So those are the project costs. On the development side, very simple. We go to page number 22. Here's where we identify Titan and a kind of TBD development to be at some point. Again, we think something will occur out there. Again, footnoted that $1.7 million expansion assessed at 40% of the cost. That's how we got back to that 680 number. No guarantee it's going to be 680, but that's a speculative kind of guess from an educated guess on our part as to where we think it'll end up. We are required to put together a cash flow, which is on page 24 of the plan. And why you see red numbers on the far right is because the dollar amounts we're talking about are relatively small. The stormwater is 130,000. The road projects are 25,000. Typically, what the city would do is go out and borrow money and stretch out the payments over the life of the district and match out the revenues and the bond and the payments, right? That's what they would typically do. The dollar amounts are so small here, $155,000, that the expectation is the city's just going to advance the money out of the general fund and get reimbursed back with interest over time. That's kind of the plan that we've laid out here. Working with city staff, and they're comfortable with those dollar amounts to be advanced to a TIP. You're not going to do that if it's millions. You're going to do that if it's $155,000. So that's really the plan. That's why you see it in the cumulative column, negative numbers, even though over time it'll pay for itself and finally be reimbursed fully back. The other items in the project plan are required per statute. We are not under section 10. We're not annexing any land. This is all currently in the boundary, the city bound limits. 11, we're not expecting any of the property to be retail business. On section 12, no change to the zoning ordinance. This is already zoned for this purpose. Master plan, this is in compliance with the master plan and building codes and ordinances. Section 13, we're not relocating any persons. And section 14, if anything else, we expect this will add some jobs to the area, which is always good as far as promoting development throughout the city. And we don't expect any other costs to be incurred by the city outside of this area beyond what we're looking at this point. So from a technical standpoint, this is a very, I'll say, simple tax increment district compared to what we see many times. But it serves a specific purpose here to help with the local industry with their expansion and takes care of some public infrastructure needed to support the area. So that's a relatively quick summary, and happy to answer any questions. I know we're still in the public hearing.
Is there anybody from the public that's
Anybody from the public want to comment on public hearing? If not, anybody from the public want to comment on hearing? If not, close the hearing. Anybody else have any questions? We'll close the public hearing. We don't need motion?
Nope, you don't need a motion to go into that, you do not need a motion to go into or out of public hearing. Okay. 5 feet. Yeah, 5 feet. No. We gotta look at the resolution on 5B.
Possible action, the resolution designating proposed boundaries and approving a project plan for tax increment district number.
Yeah, I'll just comment briefly on the resolution, just so you know what you're acting on. What the resolution does is it looks at the state statutes for the creation of a tax increment district, and they identify all the sections that are required to be in the project plan. Our project plan is laid out by statute, you know, that's why it's structured the way it is as we go through the project plan. So all of the elements that are required are identified under that third whereas in the project plan. So what you're really approving is that the project plan contains all of those elements and that you've held a public hearing on the tax increment. That's what you're approving. And then this will forward it on to the city council for a separate resolution and a separate action.
Yeah, I would ask for approval of projected plan for tax increment district number 6.
I'll second it.
No, would you repeat and make a motion? Second.
On favor.
Yeah, I got a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great.
All right, thank you. Yep, appreciate it. Have a good night. Thanks for the time, Mayor. Thank you. Over to see you. Good to see you. Yeah. See you guys. Careful.
Well, you gotta see us on first.
Guys, see us in real quick. I received an application for the old diner. Shop. For the zoning part of it, I realized that it was 3 separate parcels. So since it was one use, I decided we needed to combine those 3 lots. So that we're 3 different tax bills. Technically, the parking lots were working independently of the business, which obviously they're not. So the owner agreed to provide a CSM to combine all 3 lots. And just one use. We have a CSM will get potentially approved.
Yes, Al? I'll make a motion to approve this.
I'll second.
Second, yes, Al? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Mr. Clark, I guess you're next. Huh? Cedar Park, you guys are next, front and center.
Evening, everyone. Well, I think we'll take care of the unfinished business first, and that's with respect to the land use chapter element of the plan that we had addressed in the committee, approved by consensus at least. I trust there's no further questions, issues, comments on that. So if you're prepared, we have a resolution. We did have the public hearing at the last meeting. There was no commentary, but we didn't have a resolution on the agenda. So this is the formal resolution that allows the plan commission to adopt that plan element, and we'll forward this to the city council for their adoption. And then that element will be considered part of your current comprehensive plan, and we'll set that aside. We're going to revisit that a little bit down the road here. If there's any questions, happy to answer those. Otherwise, just looking for a motion to approve the resolution.
Yeah, question? From motion to resolution number 2022, recommending the city council planning. adopt amendment to the city of London 2030 comprehensive plan.
I would make that motion. Second it.
Motion made and seconded. This is resolution number 2022. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Move on to the next one. This, I guess, constitutes the official kickoff of the full comprehensive plan update. As you're aware, we tackled the land use element because there were some ongoing issues and some things you wanted to strengthen just in the short term. Make sure you weren't caught off guard by any proposals. But the intent was really to look at updating the entire plan, which is somewhat dated and needs a bit of work on it. So one of the first things that needs to be done in any type of process like this is updating your public participation plan, state smart growth requirements. Have this as a requirement to adopt a citizen participation plan and outline the methods by which the community is going to try to inform the public, engage the public, try and seek input. It doesn't force anybody to come to meetings, obviously, but every attempt will be made by the city to get information out there, make sure it's available for those who are interested. So we've put an updated participation plan together in a resolution format. It's probably fairly similar to what the city had adopted when you did the last plan. And we write these a little bit, I don't want to say wishy-washy, but it gives some flexibility that the city may do some of these things. But the process itself can use a variety of methods in terms of gauging citizen input, whether it's public hearings, which are required at the end, as we know, to looking at the information on the website, citizen survey, open houses, any number of types of events. Of course, plan commission meetings, public comment opportunities at this meeting, even city council offers additional opportunities for the public to make comments or suggestions regarding the comprehensive plan. If you look at the second page of that resolution, we outline in detail the things that will likely occur. The public hearing obviously is required. So at the end of that process, we'll do something similar, posting the class 1 30-day notice. The city's website obviously is a good avenue to post information. So as we go through this process, as we have draft plan elements ready, we will get those out on the website for the public to view. Survey, we did talk at length with staff about maybe the best methods to get feedback. And we felt the citizen survey and online survey was probably going to be the best opportunity. After this meeting is done, we'll be working on developing that survey. And I can talk a little more about that when we get down the agenda a little bit. But the intent would be to do that, probably try and get something out there in May. Maybe you have it run through midsummer or so, and a variety of ways. Obviously, we'll want to promote that with some assistance from the city. Public open house meetings, you'll notice we underlined may be held. I think that's something that we'll kind of gauge as we go through this process, see what kind of issues come up, conversations, concerns by the public or even the plan commission. Depending on the content of the updated plan, if you feel that it's necessary to have more of an informal, 2-hour open house, not necessarily a formal presentation, but we can bring in boards and maps and information for the public to kind of wander around, view, and then obviously talk with us as Cedar staff or with Dave or Chad or whoever might be here to answer questions or get additional ideas. So it's not out of the question, but it's something I think we'll want to monitor as we certainly get towards the end of that process. As I mentioned, plan commission meetings would certainly be an opportunity for input. And then we'll certainly work with city staff on a couple of key opportunities during this process that we can get a press release or some information out to the local media, certainly forming a partnership as best you can to have them share information about this process, encourage citizens to get engaged would be great. There may be times where Ken or I or both have just one-on-one meetings with staff or with elected officials. And obviously the intent there is to gather some information. Those don't need to be publicly noticed, but we want to put it on record that that's simply another method for us to gather information. And then the city has done a number of planning projects in the recent past. And we feel that if something was done within the last 3 to 5 years, it's likely that the feedback given through those processes is probably fairly similar as to what it might be today, although lot has changed in the last 5 years. So we'll want to take a look at those types of documents that are listed there, or other plans, and pull some information out of there, get some sense of what the attitudes of the community were in those efforts. Obviously trying to reach out to your neighboring communities, overlapping districts is part of the challenge, and the intent here is to try and make sure that you as the city are informing your neighbors, and that they also have an opportunity to be aware of the process, and if they see something that's of concern, the ability to bring that forward and have some conversations about it. We understand it is your plan within your municipal boundaries, you're in control of those things, but we all know that things can happen on the ground that influence beyond that imaginary line that's out there on the landscape. So with that, and then lastly, the plan adoption is just reiterated here in terms of how that will be done, and really as simple as that. So this would be the official citizen participation plan that we'll use through this process. Rarely, if at all, we had to go back and revisit the methods that would be listed in this, but we're always open to that should something unique or different occur within this process. So if there's questions, happy to answer those. Otherwise, we would be looking for the Plan Commission to make a motion to adopt this resolution, and this will need to go to the council for approval then.
I like your plan where you're talking about having a public hearing, or the public come in and have some slides set up or something like that so people can look at it. I think that's a great idea, doing that.
We could certainly entertain that as we go along. So let's keep that in mind.
I think we've done that before with things had something set around here in the room and people can look at them and see what plans they like or whatever. I think that's a good idea.
Have you had a lot of participation in the past in some of those recent planning efforts?
Last one we did was we got a STP urban grant for their future downtown project. And we did some open houses with that, just showing things, getting the dot voting board, the dot votes on boards. We did that this past summer at a local business. We had okay turnout with that.
I like that idea better. That way you get a feel of what everybody else is, because a lot of people ain't going to come forward anyway.
Yeah.
So I think if you get them down there, at least we get a small percentage anyway of how the public feels about stuff.
You can always go beyond any of those requirements listed in the public participation plan. There's no penalty for doing more than what you said you were going to do, but you do want to do the things that you have listed. In the plan. So the more outreach that you want to do, typically the better, but you have to monitor that based on the amount of participation you get. You don't want to spend a lot of time and money on efforts that just don't bring out a lot of folks.
Anybody else have any questions? I look for adopting an updated public participation plan for the year 2040 comprehensive plan update for the city of New London.
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
Motion been made and seconded.
Who seconded, Mayor?
Okay. I'm Dave.
Yep.
Motion been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, discussion item for your 20 comprehensive plan update kickoff.
Take one of those and pass them down.
Thank you.
We don't spend a lot of time on this, but I feel like it's an absolute requirement by planners to make sure that any plan commission we work with has a good understanding of the process. And I'm sure some of you were part of the last plan update process. You've probably seen some of this before, but just kind of at a high level. Obviously, the state requires the comprehensive plans, and the contents of that are dictated by state statutes. The outcomes of the plan are not dictated by state statutes. We must address certain things in there, but what the community decides to do with those things is really up to them. That can create for good plans, that can create for bad plans, and things all the way in between. But for the most part, that it works. So we want to give you just an overview, kind of a quick fact sheet about the comprehensive planning law. There's 9 elements that we're going to be addressing. Obviously, we hit on the land use element that was just adopted, but we'll come full circle back to that towards the end of the rest of the update. So we'll be talking with you in the Plan Commission about issues and opportunities, housing, transportation, utilities, community facilities, ag, natural resources, economic development, intergovernmental cooperation, and implementation. There is a consistency requirement that's been debated a bit over the years, but really hasn't come to fruition as a huge concern across the state. But basically, the intent of doing the comprehensive plan is to ensure that your regulations that deal with land use, your zoning, your subdivision, things of that nature, and decisions made on a day-to-day basis with those tools are consistent with what is in that vision and what is in that comprehensive plan. If they are not, we always suggest you kind of put a stop on things and say, we need to take a look at the plan again and see if there's, feelings that what's in the plan should stay and we shouldn't approve this, or you can feel free to amend the plan or the map to make that action consistent. But the key here is having that consistency. The more consistency you have on decision-making and tying it back to the things in the plan, the better off you're going to be from a legal standpoint, certainly. The update should be done about once every 10 years, and we're certainly about that point. There are no specific rules to doing an update, but it's basically the same process as doing a plan from scratch. We have to touch on all of these elements. We have to update them. We have to do the citizen participation plan, have the same approval process, but oftentimes this will go a little bit quicker because of the familiarity of what was in the document itself. Public involvement, we kind of went through that as far as the methods that we're going to do that. And then just on the back side here, for your benefit, listing of just different benefits that we feel, or we as planners feel, a comprehensive plan provides. You know, you're looking at the past, you're projecting into the future, you know, laying out that roadmap for land use and some of these issues that we've been dealing with. The intent is to be proactive as possible, not sit there and react, oh, gee, what do we do now? We've got this proposal and we're really not prepared. We never saw this coming. Saving money ultimately, good plans will hopefully help less mistakes. I'm going to say not any mistakes, less mistakes are made in the future with respect to land use. And it could be anything from the impacts on transportation or utilities, but knowing what's going to happen on some of these properties is going to put the city in a better position to plan accordingly for all the services and the things that those things are going to demand. I'm not going to go through all of these, but property rights is included in here. It's something that we certainly respect and we understand. Oftentimes those that wave the property rights flag, so to speak, don't necessarily understand what their rights are, what they aren't either. So sometimes it's an educational process. We don't run into that a lot through these processes, but you never know. You may have a couple of folks that are vocal that, who are you to tell me what I can do with my land? And I encourage any of you to answer those questions if you have one. So, but we respect the thoughts of all people. So just by way of background, again, a few things for you to kind of keep in mind as we go through this process. It's never a perfect process. I've never seen what I call a perfect plan either. But I think we can take what you have, update it, make it current, make it kind of touch on the issues that are present today and probably in the very near future, and do a better job with managing those things from a planning standpoint. Any thoughts or questions on what a comprehensive plan is, what it isn't? Concerns? Okay. You said as we get into the second rounds of doing these updates with communities, it often goes a little bit easier. I'm going to refer to the project timeline, the second sheet that was handed out. We got a little bit of a slow start, or maybe a slow approval on the land use elements. So we're off a little bit from what our original proposal was. But we feel with the nature of this project and our capacity, we should still be able to hit the mark or come close to it with the end date of the goal of having this plan done and approved by April of next year, basically within a year. So we've now going to have the kickoff this evening, March instead of January. And we elected to add a little detail here as far as the next 3 plan commission meetings. And this might change a little bit depending on everybody's schedule. And we know sometimes these meetings can change. But we'd intend on coming back in May, July, and October with the intent on really hitting on 2 to 3 different plan elements at each meeting. It seems like a lot, and it may be a little bit, but we've got a process, I think, that we can get you through that with your dedication and commitment, obviously, to address these things. We move some things around. Typically, we would start with an analysis of a lot of the demographic, the socioeconomic information, but we were wary at the time about the availability of the new census data. And no sooner did we have a meeting with you guys, and then they released the 2016 to 2020 5-year American Community Survey data, which incorporates the 2020 census, gives us the ability now to compare different 5-year periods across census information. It'll take us a while to gather that, but we basically pushed a lot of that stuff towards the end of this process. Also because there'll be additional data coming out from the census that we'll probably want to use and entertain that's not available now. And we also know that DOA, Department of Administration, utilizes that information to generate some of their own projections and some of their own figures, and those usually come out later in the year. So with luck, we'll have an opportunity towards the end of this process to make sure that you've got the most accurate, most current demographic, socioeconomic information as part of this. So in May, we thought we'd come back and we would hit the transportation, community facilities, and the ag, natural, cultural resources, talk about economic development and intergovernmental cooperation in July, and then come back in October where we've got some very data-heavy items with demographics and housing. And then in December, we would review the land use again, see if anything needs to change at that point after we go through all this other information, and talk about implementation as well. We plan on distributing drafts of the updated chapters and getting them into the committee's hands at least 1 to 2 weeks prior so that you have some time to sit and read them and review them. We always encourage plan commissioners to spend as much time as they can thinking about these things. We know you don't have an endless amount of time, but these are important things with respect to the community. So we hope and expect that you're going to dedicate some time, not only in this room as part of these meetings, but kind of offsite and spend adequate time looking at those things, thinking about them, making notes, marking it up. We'd like to start those meetings when we get into this with hitting, conversation right off the bat and not a lot of blank stares that, well, I didn't really read that and do my homework. But the more you're familiar with it, the more beneficial conversations we're going to have. We don't have to make these things so complex that we can't get through them. I usually like to simplify a lot of this information, especially when we're talking, having the conversations. We've got some updated facts. Here's what it means and what the impacts might be. And then the question is, what do we do about it, if anything? And I think if we keep it as simple as that in terms of the thought process, you're not going to get overwhelmed and overloaded. We have talked with staff, and we hope you as a plan commission agree that at these meetings that are scheduled here, that we're going to probably need roughly, close to an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half to get through those items at each of those meetings. So please plan accordingly that it's not going to be 30 minutes and we're out of here, unless you're so exceptional and have your homework done. That great. So, but we'll try and make it as easy as possible and try and keep things flowing and make sure that we stay on task. It's very easy to get off task and other conversations, and that's great and it's enlightening. But if it's not helping the process or get to the end point, we'll kind of stop you and say, let's put that in a parking lot and we can save that for later. Or you guys can talk to Chad about that one and we'll go about our business. So I think lastly, as far as expectations, remember, you as plan commissioners making the decisions on land use, being involved in this process, you really are ambassadors for this process. And so we would hope that you take the time on your own time as an elected or civil servant, if you will, to promote it. Talk to your neighbors, have a conversation with somebody on the street, talk to some of the business owners, make sure they're aware of it, promote it in the fact that the process is ongoing, and encourage folks to reply to the survey, come to meetings, get their thoughts out there. The last thing we like to see is at the 11th hour, a bunch of people storming in for a public hearing and they're all uninformed as to exactly what we're doing. I don't expect that to happen here, but it has happened in the past. Right, Ken?
It happens on occasion.
occasion. Any questions or thoughts about the process, the timeline?
Eric, regarding some of those subtopics under the time frame, like the transportation, the economic development, we obviously have other committees that are involved in those things. Our Board of Public Works for Transportation, we've got Economic Development Committee. Do we bring those committees in with this, or how do we communicate with them? What have you done in the past?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, they're kind of the owners of those particular areas and know the details, and certainly that's the best way to handle it. So, when we're talking about those topics, it might not be bad to bring them on in for that meeting.
So have joint meetings of
Have a
those.
Joint meeting of those topics, yeah.
I mean, really, the authority to prepare these plans, basically the plan commission, it's your project, but we certainly want to make sure they're informed so we can devise a communication system, make sure those appropriate committees, other individuals get the chapters that affect them, and then encourage them to either come to these meetings. If you want to make it a formal joint meeting to have more interaction, I think that's fine. Or at a minimum, they should be funneling any thoughts and conversations, back through you so that can be shared. That's an excellent point.
What about utilities? Is that in the community facilities
Yes.
topic? Okay, so
Yep.
utilities would be involved in that one as well then. Okay.
Correct.
Thanks.
I think that's a great idea. I've seen it too, where the public wasn't informed. Also, some departments haven't been informed, and why weren't we asked for our input? So that's very good to do that.
And not only committee members, but obviously key staff as well. So I think the more people that know about this and get their eyes on it, the better. There's no other questions on that. What we wanted to do tonight was a quick, I don't want to say quick, a thorough exercise with the committee here to really just kind of get the ball rolling, not only so we kind of understand the thoughts that you might have about the community, but also this information is going to give us, I think, a good base to work with when we develop some questions for the survey. Oh yeah, just on the survey as well. Like I said, we want to try and pull something together that is fairly short, maybe 15 questions or so. Could go a little more than that, but we want them to be the right questions for the public. So we really need to know what's on your mind, which I think we can glean from this SWOT analysis process. And then obviously through our experience in some of the communities we worked with before, we know some questions that are probably ripe for citizens to respond to. So we'll work on that. And I don't think timing wise is going to work where we have a draft of the survey and come back to this committee formally to discuss it and get approval, but we definitely will want to share it with you. And Chad, I believe you can get the word out to the committee, share that with them, and you can respond by email or through chat if you've got any concerns on that. So now, that being said, Ken has just handed out a little bit of a cheat sheet and an overview. Many of you may have been through a SWOT analysis process before. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Strengths and weaknesses are usually internal to your community, things that you pass judgment on, that we didn't do this right, or we're really good at this. Opportunities and threats can be internal, but for the most part, they're external. They're forces that you don't have a lot of control over, but you may be able to connect yourself with in a positive or a negative manner. Highway 15 bypass of Hortonville and coming up here. Might look at that as a threat, might look at it as an opportunity. Not sure, that's your opinion. But it's certainly something that you didn't necessarily ask for, it's kind of forced upon you, it's happening in your environment. How do you deal with that? So that's just maybe one example. The backside of the page with a pretty graphic on there really shows that, how these thoughts are organized in just a 2x2 matrix. As we start to ask you some questions, get some results. What we'd like you to do on the side there is kind of think in these terms. It's easy to kind of stray about what strengths or weaknesses are. And we like to know everything. I've been to a number of communities doing this process, and I'm always amazed how many folks reference high school sports, during this process. I'm going, that's great. Okay, it shows there's some spirit and sense of community, but doesn't give us a lot of things to work with in terms of doing a comprehensive plan. So we're not saying you have to stick to these topics on the side here, but definitely let's try and keep things along the lines of the projects that we're working on. So what I'm going to do is everyone should have a little post-it notes in front of you. And we're going to just take a couple of minutes. We're going to focus on strengths first.
Someone need a pen.
We've got some extra pens.
If you're good with pens, okay.
We're going to take a couple of minutes and we're going to ask you as individuals to jot down one thought per post-it note and see if you can come up with maybe about 3 to 5 thoughts about strengths of the community. What are some of the assets that you have? What resources do you have that you think you can or have leverage? How do people view you from the outside in a positive sense? So there's really no rules here, but we'll give you a couple of minutes and try and write down one thought per piece of paper. And then we'll go around and have some discussion about those things.
Well, I'm going to object a little bit to what Eric says in that there are a couple little rules. Number one is there's no dumb or stupid answer. Okay. Everything is fair game on this thing. Okay. So don't feel intimidated by saying something. All right. The other thing is, as Eric mentioned earlier, some of these can be strengths and they can be weaknesses. So don't feel that you can't put one against the other in the fashion in which we're listing these at. Okay. So it's pretty wide open. It's pretty much a wild, wild west right now as we go through these. And if you get your comments on those pieces, we're going to go around the room and I'm going to chart them under each of the topics. And then once we kind of exhaust our list, we're going to have a little discussion and then probably some prioritization.
We're making the presumption, of course, that everybody likes living here for some reason. Hoping to share those.
This helps Eric and I, gives us a little barometer of what you folks are thinking as we come out of the chutes. The strengths and opportunities, think of yourself, as Eric mentioned, as an ambassador of your community. So what those things would be that you try to promote.
Good way. Give you about another minute or so, a little longer.
You can write them down as we're going through these things too. Yeah. Thoughts will pop into your head.
He is not to take too long in these exercises. We kind of want those top of mind thoughts.
This will also give us some information to work on those survey questions. Because if things evolve, one thing we want to do is how can you promote the strengths and the opportunities, and learn a little bit more about how you can overcome the threats or the weaknesses that you have. So we can maybe reach out to the public with some ideas there and how that might be able to be achieved. But we need to start with the idea.
Some pen slowing down here. So if you've got continued thoughts, go ahead and keep writing things down. But what we want to do is really just kind of go round robin. And
so take the strengths first.
Yep. Doing strengths. So maybe just spit out one idea that you had written down.
Businesses in this town are strengths.
Refer to the types of business, variety?
Well, they're industrial, like Tyson, Amcor, all the bigger ones that we
We have
have.
a lot of the manufacturing, it's a good
Right.
solid manufacturing base.
Right.
Okay, it's good to know. If someone has already said something up there, and you had it on your sheet, you can say it again. That's fine, and we would encourage that. That way we know that multiple people think this is a strength. Oh, you, sir. One of your-
Well, as the utility manager, obviously the electric grid is going to be a huge asset to the community. We have the availability to supply large industry with electricity on the outskirts of town, which would be a huge asset to any industry coming.
The rivers,
Rivers, water resources, certainly I would have expected that to come up on the strength of the book. River town, got a lot of history to that, certainly recreational resource. Dave,
I had rivers as well,
you have rivers also?
and I also had utilities. Not only are they proactive with stuff, they're really quick on reactive. So stuff comes in, they jump right on it and get it going. So
Give me that one again, Dave. The utility, you said utilities?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And what about them?
the fact that they're proactive, and yet when something comes in, they're quick to react and get stuff taken care of.
Proactive, reactive.
Yep.
Okay.
And then have another vote for river and water resources.
Well, when they vote, they can.
Okay.
I'll put a double here.
Yeah.
And then I add parks as well.
Parks,
The parks here are really
park system.
quite the infrastructure.
What are your thoughts?
I also had the Wolf River as an asset to the community. And then I also had another one as the parklands, because that gives a wide variety of usage for the families. Whether it's a trail system, just going for a walk, or all the equipment, the ball diamonds we have in this town.
I'll just put here some of those specific trails. Ball fields.
I was looking at the population that we have, and we have a lot of people that stay within our community. We don't have a lot that, I mean, once they're here, it seems like they stay. And I think that's a big strength for us.
I don't know what the data shows. Do you feel that you include younger folks?
And I do think that is probably a weakness then. I mean, the population can go both ways,
Right.
because I'm not sure, I think we have an older group of people, which could be as a strength, but it also could be a weakness that we maybe aren't bringing in a lot of younger people to our,
But the point that you made is
Yeah.
that once people are here, they see the light.
They settle.
stay.
they settle.
Okay. That's good to know.
So I just want to capture this. Okay, population. Are you talking the diversity of your population, or are you talking about population wants to stay here?
This is the 10-year might be the right word.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
Got it.
you're not
Okay.
thinking about why people moving in, moving
Right.
out, but-
And as a retired teacher, I do think we have a good school system too.
A lot of students that you taught.
Well, actually, I mean, just in the area, just as a good,
Well, yeah, what's one of your thoughts on the strengths?
Well, I had several of those things you
Mhm.
have there already. One of the things, say, the clinic, the hospital clinic is a plus. And we're strong in churches.
Mhm.
We have wonderful churches. But I also had utilities, industrial base, people in general are, some of them, like you say, leave
Mhm.
when they're younger, but they come back.
Yeah.
If you talk to a lot of our people, they lived elsewhere for a long time, and now they're home again.
And statistically, I've seen numbers for a long time, but I go talk with some folks, and they do say that Wisconsin has a higher rate of people coming back to the state. They do need water, but many folks come back, and I can tell you from a hiring standpoint, when I was director of East Central Planning and we're doing hiring for new positions or replacements, it was amazing how many resumes came in of someone that's now in Iowa, cutting their teeth on their first job, but they want to get back to the area. I mean, it was fully half the resumes, it seemed, that I got were for people in those situations. So I think that speaks well to Wisconsin and communities like this.
And the rivers, the parks and sports and recreation.
Rivers, parks, sports and recreation. I was gonna mention too, with the hospital and the clinic, obviously it helps put you on the map as sort of a central point that people come to for such services as well, which is beneficial. Bad that they have to go to the hospital for some reason, but there are some benefits to attracting people.
I think just our location by itself, other than the fact that it's long, but we're close to, 90 minutes at max for all kinds of pluses.
Just get Chad.
Chad?
You can lie, right? I wrote down strong history of the community. Dates back and where we've came from till now.
You get the sense that a lot of residents know and understand the history?
Absolutely.
And embrace it?
Yes.
Okay. It's good. Many people forget about the past very easily, but it's something that can help foster that sense of community.
It's important. I come from Pulaski. We got a strong Polish history. You'd be surprised how, the local folks that grew up there protect that image and want it to be successful. What you have going on here for St. Patty's Day. I mean, everybody, like you said, regionally knows that.
Mhm.
You've identified yourself. That's good.
Other thoughts, anybody there?
Strengths?
Strengths.
Strength,
Listed
I
there.
had the same thing, park and river.
Okay.
They're in business, so.
Nothing that's not on the list already?
I think our ability to grow, the layout of our city is not restricted. We have the ability to get larger. So whether it be with population or industrial growth.
Well, you do have a lot of natural resources, a lot of wetland areas associated with River Corridor. You're right, you do have some expanses of land that are developable and accessible.
I just had parks and that we have good schools here.
Good schools often come up, and that is usually a key element to growing a community. Got to have good schools. Anything else that was on the list?
Kind of coincides with River, but the fishing that's here, and then secondly, like the events you have, like the Irish Fest and stuff, I think that brings a lot of people to the area.
Get right to that, Dave.
They do a number of fishing tournaments in the area?
I know they have don't they have like a walleye tournament or something here?
Yeah, big
Oh,
whopper,
the muskie.
big whopper,
All year long, there's tournaments,
the muskie.
bass tournaments all year long.
big whopper weekend. What else do we?
And I also put, with all the industry in the area, kind of, because this is kind of a smaller population wise. So per capita, we've got quite a bit of industry kind of helping with the taxes and stuff to keep stuff moving.
Is a draw to the area.
You mentioned the festival.
Yes.
Festivals and events.
All right, keep rolling.
Any other
Great.
thoughts that-
Only other one would be our type of our businesses. I mean, we have a Walmart, which is a huge plus to the community. And obviously we got the big festival right here, foods. Be nice to have another grocery store, but that's,
At least you got.
at least we have one.
Yeah.
And where would we be without Walmart and a grocery store in this town?
That's true. You've got some major retail that not only serve the population, but the surrounding area. So it brings people into those areas and spend their money and spend a little more money. Leave it here. Anything else?
I can't think of anything else.
Any other
No,
thoughts
thank
that
you.
you have?
What about the people on the front here?
The mayor, but he skipped me last time, so come on.
Pretty much all.
Nothing else?
Nope.
Chad?
I put small town atmosphere, big city services, whether it's like the parks, whether it's,
public works or utilities. I mean, we have a lot of big city services for the size of our community. A bunch of the other ones that we've had, I think our downtown currently is strong. We're struggling trying to find open businesses right now. Yeah. So, and we have a long downtown. I mean, if you include North Water Street and Pearl Street and even the backside of Wolf River Avenue where the vet clinic is, I mean,
It's a mile long, isn't it?
there's a good amount of downtown.
Point.
Yep.
So notice that as well when I'm coming into town, that there's not a lot of vacant store for us.
Nope.
Either. So. Any other thoughts?
I'd just like to echo the size and population, like Chad said, along with the location. We're not part of the valley, but we're just outside of the valley. Big city atmosphere.
Would you,
Really size the
would this capture it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You feel community just the right size, too big, too small? I mean, we're talking about impact for growth. You can have population want to grow, that can change dynamics of the community.
It does. It does. Growth is always good. I mean, it coming with our location. And I think no matter how big we get, we're not gonna look like Appleton.
Should we put, highway access here? Would that, I mean,
Highway
would that help? I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly at the
Okay.
crossroads of major corridors. For that.
That's gonna be an opportunity too with the development of 15.
Nervous.
Yeah.
We're gonna wrap this one up, but any last thoughts for anyone on something we didn't have on the list that you wrote down?
Probably workforce too, huh?
Leadership, yeah.
Probably.
Bring it
back.
Anything burning that you want to add to this list?
Excuse me.
Pretty good? All right, we'll go to weaknesses then.
Why don't we trade off? I'll write for a while and you can talk.
That too, but I just hit in the road.
Oh, if you're in the groove, that's fine. I want you complaining tomorrow that my wrist is sore.
No.
All right, so, well, let's talk about the opposite. Let's do weaknesses. Again, on pieces of paper in front of you, jot down some thoughts about what you think the biggest weaknesses are with your community. What needs improvement? There's always something that needs improvement. It could be as specific as, some playground equipment needs improvement in a particular park, or you can go broader than that, everybody needs to change. Are you lacking some resources in your community that other communities have? Do other communities do some things better than you that maybe you're a little bit jealous of, which is fine. But what's missing in your community? Where could you do better? In what sense?
Jealousy can sometimes be a great motivator.
Yeah. We're not suggesting that you should be like everybody else out there, obviously, but.
We do? Yeah. That was one of my first projects when I was hired. It was already in the works. I just had to put it together.
Easier to think about certain things. I know. Everybody's a critic. Some exercise of the community on the front end of doing plans like this, we map-based exercise. One of the questions was simply, I forgot how we phrased it. We basically feel put dots on a map for things that they didn't like in the community. It's amazing that there's always that one house, that one corner that basically someone says needs a match thrown on it, problem properties. So I did proceed with that exercise, the spots on the weaknesses from a physical standpoint. minute or so to think about that. Help yourselves to categorize things already, huh? Well, let's see what we got. Again, you can still keep writing that notes on us. For the mayor, what's the weakness?
Weakness, our downtown structure is old and not designed for this century's entertainment.
Challenges with current businesses or new ones trying to locate, that they just don't meet the demands with codes or needs?
Everything from not wide enough to entertain. They're facing each other instead of like at the river, taking advantage of the river.
Yeah, that's one thing that's changed. We built it how many years ago and decided that wasn't an asset at the time.
Right. That was work to them back then.
You don't necessarily want to put all the back doors on the main drag either.
Right.
Nice challenges.
It's interesting now, those river or those businesses that go along the river years ago went over that alley and they had beautiful lookout,
Yeah.
what do you want to call it? Patios, whatever. So they used to love looking at them.
Highlight the river.
Right.
Yeah.
Chip?
Fair amount of land that is surrounding New London is wetlands, so for growth, it's a challenge. We can't grow in every direction because we have that wetlands holding us back.
I would assume that many areas near the wetlands also probably some high groundwater, so even though it may not be wetland, it looks good. Challenges.
It fluctuates.
Well, yeah. I noticed that on
Sometimes
the drive
it's
here.
dry and sometimes.
Definitely high water right now. Oh, you, sir?
Roads need work.
Weaknesses.
Roads need work.
Roads need work.
More grocery stores.
Roads need work, and all they need is money. Fix all the roads. I would bet my life savings, someone's gonna mention roads, usually doing this exercise. And that is a challenge. Certainly. So every community struggling with that in their budgets, so.
Well, Bob took my roads and groceries. I have more use of the river and a better mix of retail and housing. But I hesitated putting housing on there because we do have several wonderful developments coming. But I still hear from people who they can't find a rental.
The rental stuff has been all over the news the last couple of days, talking about the most expensive cities to live in and those that have had rents go up, 7% in some cases. On average, I think Wisconsin, if I remember, was maybe about 17%, which isn't that bad. But even I cringe when I hear what people are paying for rent and what they're asking. Wow.
So I missed that comment. You said rent?
Just housing and.
Housing? Okay.
Housing.
Housing costs?
Housing needs, housing costs, yeah. I need to have you add a second grocery store on that list too, as mentioned.
Need?
Yeah.
Lack of grocery stores.
Housing availability too, with the housing, just with the lack of some of it.
Mhm.
Technically, yeah, I'm not sure it's there. I've never been in there.
I see that we have a lack of recreational paths, biking paths, jogging paths. I mean, just not on the road. I mean, I look at, like Greenville area and they're all over into the subdivisions and we just don't have that.
So probably not only the amount that you have, but the connectivity.
Right. Right.
That you just can't get from point A to
Yeah.
point B all the time using a path.
Right.
And I should qualify that a safe
Right.
path.
I see that we have resources that are available to people, but I don't think a lot of people know that we have those resources. So I don't think that we do a good job of communicating and getting those resources out there, especially to our older population. I think they feel quite isolated. And it's probably because of technology, that they're not used to the technology and don't use it. And so therefore they're ill-informed and don't realize the resources that are out there.
Yeah. No, it's a really good comment, and something I think has become more important since the pandemic. I'm sure you've experienced it here at the start of the pandemic and isolation and all that, but I never saw so many people walking around the neighborhood, you know, where I live, or the pathways. So if you've got those demands, you know, we're hopeful that that carries on from a health standpoint and for other reasons. But yeah, building a stronger network and promoting that definitely could help. Oh, yes, sir.
One thing I had was the river system. It doesn't get utilized all year like I think it should. I mean, go back to your talking about the design of the downtown. I mean, you go to Fremont, that town is just hopping in the summertime. I mean, you come here in the spring, we're loaded with people, but all of a sudden, just it's almost like they take the river for granted and it's gone. It's for the rest of the year. Be nice to try to promote something, or I mean, it's
Sure. Did this capture your thought that I had listed, not using river to fullest extent?
yeah, that would be good.
Okay.
Is it simply a seasonality thing?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
I mean, it brings a lot of business to our community for 2-3 months in the spring, and then it seems like it's just forgotten about up here.
I think you hit that spot on, like Fremont.
All season focus.
That's focused on their river, like, you know, they have a strip that is focused towards it, and they utilize it daily for different events. I mean, the web footers and stuff like that, we don't have that.
Good observation.
I agree on the river stuff. I live in Oshkosh. They've got a drawbridge in town, but people bring their boats up and go to the restaurants there, and there's a lot of outdoor seating. And I think we're kind of limited downtown on like having outdoor dining. People really like that, especially if there's a river. They want to look over that. I think there's a couple docks down there, but it'd be nice to have a large patio area where people could come in to have their meals and stuff.
You've got southern exposure.
Yeah.
Nice having sun on that.
And I think there is some blight in the neighborhoods that we probably should take some action on cleaning up.
My main one was the river.
Yeah.
Mayor Mark, it was tough because the main street is designed wrong.
Yeah.
And there's really no way to fix it. And then I was gonna say blight also. There's some properties that could use some cleaning.
I think a huge problem for the city is quality employees. We have a lot of large industry that are struggling to find employees and people available to work, which is definitely a strain on all facets of our community right now.
Big for that one to come up as well. Obviously, common in many communities, the shortage of the workforce has been a very big challenge out there.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder every time I see a politician telling we need more jobs, why are you even saying?
I got a handful of them.
All right.
River usage, I agree with that. And just same thing with like across the river. Now we're building apartments right on there where it could have been maybe utilized somehow else. But Highway 15 usage, there's nothing built on Highway 15 other than like Frick Ford. You know, going through there as a corridor like that. Probably will be coming up maybe. But
So
like
you see Highway 50 usage is low?
is not as in the highway. Businesses built around development around the highway using that. There's how many businesses are on Highway 15? Like from Frick Ford. That's it, right? I mean,
Ford all the way to Hortonville.
right. When, you know, on 45, you know. That whole intersection right there, it'd be nice to see restaurants or something along there for people driving by would stop and use this town.
You know, recognize not everyone's gonna get off the highway, come into downtown if they're traveling through, but
Right.
you're surprised that there hasn't been more.
I know when I go on a trip, and which I just did, I travel through and I stop where I can see things that are right on the highway where I can stop. So I don't have to drive 2 miles, 3 miles off to find something for somewhere to eat or a hotel or something. So
DOT changed their policies on some of those signs about gas station and next exit. You don't have to be within a mile or half mile anymore. Sometimes you gotta go 4 miles.
right, and you get off and you're like, what the heck?
Yeah. Oh, right, you take off like.
That's terrible.
You feel so bamboozled when that happens.
Like, on Jamie's ideal there, it goes, that stretches the whole thing. Because on the north side of town here, we have nothing. Even close to Highway 15.
Or 45, yep.
Or is that- Yeah, that's sorry, that's 45.
Yeah, that whole
We have
intersection.
nothing on 45 going north.
Obviously, things kind of develop parallel to that.
That's what the
just off
industrial
of it,
park is for.
To try and take
Right.
advantage of that.
Large businesses to have access to the highway.
Yeah.
There should be.
Well, I'm gonna go with the size and population again, because that also affects our taxes and what the city can do, because we are a smaller city. So it is definitely a weakness as well as a strength.
I had sometimes being on the edge or split between two counties is a challenge and a weakness, just because we're kind of like lost on the edge sometimes. And, you know, we got two counties that we deal with and they don't have everything the same. So it's kind of hard to.
Yeah, you're a big enough community to be in the center of a county, so to speak.
Yep.
But
We're not.
not in either one.
I also had sometimes we're too close to the valley. So drawing businesses and other things. I mean, we're almost, people can drive to the valley really quick to get those. And are we going to draw those, you know, extra fast food restaurants or whatever else? Because we're so close. The last one I had was just.
I didn't forget about it.
I agree with what Chad just said. I think sometimes we're almost too close to Appleton. People don't use what we have here in New London and they go to Appleton. Oh, I'll just go to Appleton, you know, because they can maybe get, you know,
6 other places.
yeah. And so I think that is a weakness that we do have, that, you know, they'll just go to Appleton instead of shopping here or utilizing our resources here.
Good observation. Communities frame things like that. Go ahead.
Last one I had was just on the government end of it and a flip to the big city services, just with the funding and the staffing levels that we have for those services. We're way behind. We really need, we're struggling to keep up with those big city services because of the funding and the staffing levels that we have.
Is that a function to a great degree of levy limits? In most cases.
Yep.
Okay.
That's a big part of it right there.
Is there a component of that of just attitude of residents of keep my taxes low?
I think we had that, but then a year ago or 2 years ago, since Wapaka County came out with the rankings and showed that we were the lowest taxed city in Wapaka County, I haven't heard the complaint since. So I think that got out there and like, oh, and since then I have not heard my taxes are too high, since we're the lowest tax city.
I think that needs to go out again then,
Yep.
because I hear it. I hear it all the time that our taxes are too high. So I think that would be a good thing, you know, and that's what I had mentioned about communication. I don't think we do a good job of getting those resources out to everybody. I mean, a newspaper,
Depending,
you know,
yeah.
I mean, and again, not everybody is on Facebook and all that kind of stuff. So even if we are, you know, promoting that kind of stuff on Facebook, not everybody is getting it. And I hear it all the time that our taxes are so high. So I think that would be a great thing to put out again for Wapaka County.
And we can give you that information that's
Yeah,
easily, well,
yeah,
in
I
relationship to who? Look at what we're at. you know?
Yeah, I think that would be, you know, but I that's a communication piece too, that I think we are missing a little bit.
As a former realtor, I can tell you that's true.
Yeah.
We are really lucky with our taxes.
Correct.
Compared to even
Water and electric.
Manawa.
Right.
So I-
Right.
Terrible.
3 cents under.
Communication can be a weakness all on its own.
Yeah.
They don't realize that.
Well, yeah, I kind of summarize it this way, but as you had mentioned, it's like once
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
Technology barriers between population groups impact city outreach. Sounds like, one size doesn't fit all.
Like.
On the taxes, they use it always to say you get to pay for it, you pay for what you get.
Yep.
But people don't always have the understanding of where the $5,000 is used for. It's easy to be negative on that.
Ken, when you say strongly keep up big city services, what was the primary reason there?
Funding and staffing levels.
Yeah, he just collected.
I mean, obviously, staffing levels are because of funding.
The
but-
wrong number.
Somewhat tied to levy limits.
I gotta put a lighter in my pool, so you'll be getting the call.
We're left off. Any other weaknesses?
Pretty easy now.
Any other weaknesses that didn't make it on the list?
Cover, oh,
Any other burning weaknesses?
I gotta agree with Dave, when you go out there, or I think you said it, that you go by Walmart out there, there's a lot of open land there. It would be nice to see something going in that property, a lot of farm fields. I mean, now we got a vacant Piggly Wiggly building. We lost our Burger King in town. I mean, that's a big thing too.
I noticed. Lost Burger King.
And that goes to the thing where if you don't see it from your exit, you're not gonna stop
You're
maybe.
just gonna go right by. Yeah.
You're gonna cruise through till you get,
Same concept of the gas station.
yep.
Get off, you don't see the sign, you're right back on and go.
There's a lot of unutilized land out that way, business wise.
I think we need some more commercial space, some different sizes that people can lease. I think we're kind of getting low on that.
Are you guessing that for I'll call it typical retail, or are you thinking more on the entrepreneurial side in space that's accommodate new business growth?
Just seem like we have a fair amount of people calling in looking for space right now. We don't really have a bank of, send them off this way if they need 30,000 square feet for whatever they want to do, or 10,000 or 2,000. So we could probably use a little more variance in our commercial spaces that are available.
And it's all three. I mean, it's industrial. We've had inquiries, commercial and then retail. We've had all three.
Demands are still out there.
Yep.
Where are they getting the employees?
but they're asking for ready-made, right?
Yep. Not new
Space to
construction.
lease, yeah.
Yeah.
It takes you 2-3 years to get the plans around to build something, buy the property and doing all
Right,
that. Some
right.
people just want, I need
Yes,
20,000
where they're
square
getting
foot to run my,
employees. Where I work, we just hired
bottling
10
business or whatever they
small
want to do. So it'd be nice to have those
refugees.
available.
Right.
Would you say primarily for business, need more space for land?
I'd say industrial and commercial.
I don't think we need the land because we just talked about there's land up north,
Right.
There's land in industrial park. It's just a matter of, the opportunities. Well, it's the weakness because we don't have that stock available for someone to rent or buy right now.
Okay. All right, I
Stuff's
think
going
that
quick that we
covers
do have.
Yes,
I mean,
It's also a strength that everything is full.
true.
So it does go both ways.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah, we captured that. I mean,
my point is, someone just bought what was that, the old dollar store?
Mhm.
And before he could even move in, he got another offer from a guy he gave my do not sell price. And he's like, yeah, I'll take it.
You're
So he's not
kidding.
even gonna move in now. Now he's looking for space. We don't have any.
He's got some money in his pocket, though.
Still,
already unavailable is really the key
Yeah.
word there.
And it sat empty for what, almost a year? I mean, really?
Nobody wanted, all of a sudden, everybody wanted.
Yeah.
Any other weaknesses?
No.
Got,
You got more?
yeah. Things for youth to do. We got a bowling alley and that is about it. So.
No recreation center, no
Right.
YMCA.
And they got parks,
no-
obviously they got park systems and stuff like that, but
Got some youth sports leagues and things. I'm
stuff
sure,
like that, but
yeah, that-
not, you go to Appleton, you got,
Well,
things for them to go and do,
Bailing.
roller skating,
Cause then we had an empty building down here.
all kinds of stuff. Really, there's nothing here in the winter time.
Monkey Joe's.
Right. In the winter time, also got some bowling alley.
I grew up in a small town. Yeah, we had to make our own entertainment, but just don't seem to be as good as that anymore. I don't know.
And then public involvement.
As evidenced by the public hearing tonight, nobody cares about
Every
TIF
public,
district.
every public hearing.
Every public-
Just
Careful
about.
what you wish for, but
Well, no, I'm okay with
no,
it.
it's very tough to do your job on this committee or as an elected official if you're not getting feedback. I, as an employee, you know, I like feedback, but how am I doing? You know, if you feel good, or you don't know what to think if no one's saying anything, and if you're on the right track with the decisions you're making.
They don't care what you do as long as you don't do it by them.
Well, yeah, that's a big one right there. A given.
Or if you talk to people about stuff and they're like, I didn't even know that was going on. What's happening? Like nobody has a clue to what's going on, you know?
Yeah, well, a lot of it might have to do with the outreach mechanism to, you know, to get information out.
Mhm.
Could be a lot of apathy out there thinking too, though.
Well, and a lot of our people
There is.
do not work in New London anymore.
Right.
You know, so they're gone 8, 12 hours a day and they're just home in their little nest.
You know, but they still do most of their living in the community and not at their workplace, I would
Well, they
think.
do it on the way home or,
Yeah.
you know.
Okay, any other burning weaknesses? Not, I'm gonna move my easel to that side because I'm running out of wall space.
All right, we'll go through the same routine regarding opportunities. You know, we've mentioned a few things that were on lists that could be looked at both ways, so don't hesitate to put something on there that's been said already. But what opportunities do you have? What strengths and assets do you have that you think you can leverage better? What opportunities are out there in the market? You know, we've talked a bit about need for commercial space. Could be one of those. What about other trends? You know, what's coming down the line, big picture, that might offer some opportunities?
Thank you.
Give you a couple of minutes to think about those opportunities. Biggest things that your community can take advantage of. City's sealed here. Fairly obvious, but I gotta assume the dog is hunting, or is any hunting?
You don't know what the dog is?
No.
It's the American Water Spaniel, which was that bred here or found here first time, and
No, I remember
That's-
reading that somewhere.
that's a state dog.
Dr. Pfeiffer.
Find her.
Thanks again.
Right, I think. that's what I'm saying.
Mhm.
Okay. So there are the opportunities,
I think so too.
and that's valid.
Yeah. Opportunities.
Really?
Yeah.
All the businesses that we have.
Fire?
Industries. But you can't find people to work. I don't know.
I didn't either.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's some entire connection to it. I can't remember specifics now. But I know what you're talking about.
Don't know.
I just remember.
Okay, we can
Fire trucks.
start off.
Military.
How about start off with you?
Okay, I put down the swimming pool
Somewhat the drive, yeah.
and our school system.
Separately or together?
No, separately. Because the swimming pool is not by the school.
Okay.
And jobs.
More docks?
Huh?
More docks?
Or docks.
Is that what you said?
No,
Oh,
jobs.
jobs.
Jobs. Yeah, we could use
The
some more
opportunity
docks.
being that you have jobs to attract
Yes,
residents?
yes.
Okay.
What opportunities do you see?
We've got loads of room for retail opportunities, clothing stores, shoe stores, grocery stores. And we can opportunity to use that river. You know, they used to use it 100 years ago, brought logs down and boats down.
Okay, let's talk about the first one. You're saying that the opportunity is for people to use what you have here now?
No, develop, to come in,
Oh.
and expand.
For more retail.
And I'll just keep it like that for now.
I'm going to just say our Highway 15 gives us a lot of opportunity to bring in businesses, along that path. I do think our opportunities, our school systems are strong. Our churches, we talked about already. I think the people that are here are strong and they're willing to put in the work, to it. So I think that's an opportunity there.
Good point. People are the lifeblood of a community and have that effect.
I mean, when there's good things going on, even our St. Patrick's Day, the people that are, we bring in a lot of people, but there's a lot of people that are here that just, go crazy for that weekend. The walleye weekend down at the park, it's just packed with people when they have it. So I guess the people that are involved in those, the strength of our community, I think is.
Volunteering and all those types of things. So I thought I read that New London's going to host one of the Bazaar After Dark events going up in May or June.
Yep.
Yeah.
Check it out. But no, those are nice events, and I found that those have gotten people out that haven't been familiar with the communities they've held them in. So
Then again, we have to promote that, to get it out. And I'm not sure how to get it out to all people. There's a certain group of people that will go to everything. But we're missing people. Because there's people that go, what? What was that? I didn't even know that was happening this,
Yeah, to some degree, there's information overload. There's a lot of stuff going on every summer. It's hard to pick and choose too.
But I do think our communication could really.
What opportunity do you see?
I think you can look at that entire weakness board, and that's an opportunity everyone you'd look at, every line.
Everyone.
Whether it's the river, whether it's more retail, having more business, utilizing the space.
So we'll just say reverse our weaknesses.
Yeah.
Well said. Dave?
I can't really add to that.
All right.
Well, we have the opportunity because we're going to be redoing Main Street. We have an opportunity, a huge opportunity to do it right. And to be able to have the outdoor dining and, stuff like that. We just got to make sure that when we redo Main Street, we do it right. And do it the best benefit downtown.
It's going to be there for 50 years, so it's hard to
Yes.
change after that. And seeing that sentiment by a number of
We have a
communities.
huge
that have
opportunity right now to do it right.
Downtown projects.
And
Has the concept or the thought of placemaking been talked about or discussed in the context of that? Because streets are really one of the main things that dictate space and how a place feels. And so I think you're right, getting the design right and how it interplays with the property and the public realm.
Or even how it looks too. You want it to be inviting. So you want nice stuff down there so people come to your downtown.
Yep. Yep.
Somewhere back, I think in the 70s, there's a plan drawing dust somewhere called the Anderson Plan.
Max Anderson,
That's right.
that was the author.
And that called for a whole redo of our downtown.
Mhm.
Shake a rug, huh?
Never happened.
It'd be a big shake.
Were they gonna tear it all down and start from scratch?
It was going to be walk only. And then there was going to be a parking ramp over the river.
You know, you were talking about the awkwardness of a lot of those buildings, and sometimes I think that's attributed to just craftsmanship of people. A lot of the builders today just don't know how to deal with those types of old structures. We just had a bathroom model at our house. And we ended up getting a guy who was from Europe. He actually was Greek, and he preferred to do remodeling because and it was amazing what he could do with old things. And I think that's, now developers and contractors, they just want green pastures and new buildings. And they don't want to mess with remodeling because how can they price it? There's a surprise behind every wall, that kind of thing. So I think a lot of that's just limited to the ability to do it.
In Europe, they don't tear it down, they restore it,
Yeah.
Right.
Most
Here-
people in the trades are doing construction. I'm a craftsman.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
Difference.
you watch those DIY shows, which I do at night when I can't sleep. And they're so excited about demolition, get in there and break out the windows and.
Gotta have an open floor plan.
Which, there's just not a lot of those people around.
And there's no
And that hurts.
quality in what
Like
you
what you
get.
have there, that array of old structures.
We're digressing a little, but that's
Yeah,
okay.
I'm sorry.
I think
What
our
other
our
opportunities we got?
industrial park is a huge opportunity. We
What
have
was that?
our industrial.
Oh,
park.
yes, yes.
The
yeah.
availability to fill that with a large industry. I think we need to pick and choose what we put out there, just because we have the availability to get another Tyson or Amcor. That would be a huge asset to the community.
Need to think of a strong need and then go out and find those people
Just need to
looking
be
to
somewhat
expand.
selective as that bypass gets done.
I don't know if you want to be selective, maybe selective where you put them, but you want to let everybody come in.
Oh,
Right.
sure.
Maybe not just in that.
a church in the industrial park.
Well, right, maybe just not in that
That's part of the
location, right?
Any other weaknesses we can go around again? I'm sorry, opportunities. Stuck on the
And
weaknesses.
wildlife and recreation, hunting, fishing, the wetlands.
You obviously attract a lot of people based on those resources. I don't have a good sense. Do you have a lot of lodging opportunities, campgrounds in the area, things to accommodate
We
folks
have
to
a
stay in the area?
We have a couple of campgrounds in the area, but I mean, with that said, I mean, we have the wetlands to explore, the river, the hunting that's around the area.
Mhm.
I mean, we have stuff for people to come stay here to do that stuff within our surrounding community.
Right.
Look at the people we get when the sturgeon rolls.
Right.
Yeah.
Big storms.
And what do we do with them? Nothing.
Sometimes people just need a little nudge. I have friends of mine that bought a very shallow area around the lake, and it just, fishing isn't really good, but they have all sorts of wildlife. And they have an Airbnb that they developed as part of it. And people come up from Chicago and Milwaukee, and they have kayaks, and they give them a little card about where to go to see whatever, and they're full every weekend. Just so people can go somewhere and do that. So sometimes it's just a little nudge, to get that influx of people.
Within our
Sturgeon
community.
is a classic example.
Within our community, you can see sturgeon, you can see bear, bald eagles, different kinds of birds, different
This
kinds
time of year, the
wildlife.
birds.
There's- The opportunities are endless. It's
Yeah.
one thing that I have always said is there's so much here wildlife to see.
That's a good one. More opportunities.
I got signage on the river. Right now, everybody knows where the river is, but they know from the bridge to the bridge. They don't know anything after that. There's a sign, I think, that says how many miles it is to the next place or whatever
Yeah.
now. But maybe there needs to be mapping, or when the people are out watching the sturgeon roll, that there needs to be signs out there saying, hey, come to whatever in town,
It's a good
miles
idea.
down the road or whatever.
maybe just be described a little broader as wayfinding. And do you have a system of signs in the community to point out government buildings and the post office this way and that way, trails and other things?
Needs to be updated.
Be
It's quite
updated.
old, but
Okay.
there's a wayward sign.
Does kind of go with the communication thing,
Mhm.
you know,
Well,
because you got the sturgeon coming right now, that'd be a good time to get signs out for.
And I know down at
Advertisements
the
all for other
Chamber of
things at these
Commerce, they
places.
field all kinds of calls, like, when are the sturgeon, like, people are calling them
Yeah.
nonstop about that.
You need an electric billboard out on the highway with like a countdown on it or
I said
something.
that, I said that earlier.
Yeah.
You can actually sign up, I think, for an email alert through the chamber.
Yeah.
When the sturgeon are appearing and so that they don't have to have so many phone calls and stuff.
I want you to put the chamber as a strength now because our
Yeah.
chamber is very
Now,
strong.
they wouldn't have been
They are.
earlier.
Yeah.
No, but I just thought about it. Yeah.
Okay.
No, you talk about it, yeah.
Yeah, they are a very strong asset to our community.
Yeah, they've always seemed to be pretty engaged in the community. I know
Yes.
when we did some of the riverfront visioning, they, I think, let us present there at their annual dinner, if I recall. So,
Another opportunity that I thought of was like when, I don't know how this is working now, but when Casey was here and the videos he was making,
Yeah.
that sure did shake the city up.
Yeah.
Like everybody was talking about that.
Right.
And I mean, I know now there's a new guy and it's taken a while or whatever, but boy, I think that's a real good thing, making all them kinds of different videos and.
Yep.
And it might not reach everybody, like you
Right.
said, but
Right.
the more older we all grow, the more people
Right.
are gonna have
And the more buzz you
Facebook
can
and all that
create,
kind of
gets
stuff.
people
So.
talking to.
I think another opportunity is our tourism board does a good job. I think they could probably do a little bit more as far as promoting some of the different events and, but they, we have that and we could expand on that.
remind me, is the tourism board pretty focused on New London or is it more regional?
New London.
New
New
London.
London, okay.
And they work really closely with the chamber.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought there was some broader effort for like Lower Wolf that involved maybe Fremont, New London and some of the communities at one time.
There's a co-op thing, isn't there, that
Yeah, there's
Wapaka.
There used to be a Wapaka area.
Oh, you're talking about
Chamber,
the
but I
Pat
don't
County
know if
Economic
it's-
Development Corporation?
something like that, where there was a bunch, I thought there was a bunch of people in this area that were all tying together on certain things like putting out flyers or, no, there was something like that. I watch all these videos at home. I see that.
Okay, I got one for you. Nail me down here. Do you have a brewery, a distillery, or a winery?
I'm trying. I've been-
Would you consider that an opportunity?
Oh, yeah.
You landed that fish?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that has been.
That's a good one.
I didn't want a bunch of drunks. in town.
Yeah, we got enough bars.
Patrick's Day.
But that is becoming huge nowadays is the microbrews and the wineries and
Didn't SCS Swiderski say that their development?
I'm not saying anything else. I'm just saying we're trying.
Gonna have.
And not just a
Working on it.
brewery.
Mm.
You have to have a beer garden with the brewery, like these barns and these big areas, and they just have picnic tables and.
Yeah, more and more are looking at those facilities as a private business, but it's a community gathering place.
Yeah, that's what they
And I've read some stories in small town, Oklahoma with the woe is me and one community actually invested and they bought a brewer and convinced someone to come out there, move and start a brewery and it's been the savior for the community.
Well, they got actually the winery just between New London and Hortonville. Where they have grapevines out there and stuff. They have parties there and everything else all the time.
Not
For
in the
sale.
barn.
if
In the
anybody's
barn,
got
in the
money.
barn, yeah.
that's for sale now?
I thought I seen it on there once.
Yeah.
It's
Really?
quite expensive.
Yeah. Have pretty good crowds out there.
Yep.
Other opportunities.
I think the public meetings that they hold, like at familiar grounds, like that, and then music in the park, or music on the chamber is doing that where they're bringing bands and stuff in to get more people involved. That more of that would be good. probably.
More events.
More gathering opportunities.
Farmers markets, our farmers markets have totally just about disappeared. So,
You don't have one?
Maybe that was because of the pandemic too, now that I think about it.
Was there a regular farmer's market in New London at one point? But it's,
And it's out at,
They used to have up there by Bucky's there.
no, but now it's over by, Thurn Farm.
Yeah,
They're doing one now.
Yeah.
They got Friday nights, but communication, does everybody know that?
yeah, they don't.
there's the problem.
Yeah.
What else we got for opportunities? Anything else on the lists?
I got several all revolving around growth. So growth opportunities, we have 2 TID districts right now, and we've got one more in the works. We're just talking about TID number 6 tonight, so we've got growth opportunities there. To expand on what Jay was talking about, commercial growth, industrial park, plus, like you guys were talking about North Shawano Street, going north, we've got the commercial, highway commercial availability that, we have growth opportunities there. We got the opportunities for residential growth because we have 2 residential developments under construction and 2 more hopefully in the works in the near future. So there's residential growth opportunities as well.
Chad is the guy out by the high school. Is he still considering a small retail or doctor office type thing? He gave up on that.
That was determined either through planning or one of the city committees.
Yeah,
That was before I
thought
became
it
the city
was
administrator,
dead. Yeah,
but he was asking for it and it's not zoned for,
people just didn't want it.
that's all. I think it's all R2 right now. Right now.
What else we got for opportunities? Anything else? Sim? Knowing that we just took all the weaknesses and made them opportunities.
Is there any opportunities with the school district at all?
Well, that, I was thinking, that too, what's available out towards the high school. Usually, like around the high schools, you have, like fast food places, a Subway, a Quick Trip or something. And I know that was kind of what was controversial when they did that, the Romanesco development. But I mean, there is land out that way, but
Well, that's where Highway 15 and 45 intersection should come into play, right? That should be littered with that kind of stuff like Wapaka, where they got, how many things Hardee's and Culver's, and I mean, they got a million things that we don't have. And they always say because Highway 10 runs through there. Well, you got 2 big highways right there and nobody utilizes that at all. I never understood that, I guess.
I would have to think that some of those companies have looked at the area, but what their methodology is or their thresholds,
Right.
For traffic numbers to accessibility to visibility, I'm not 100% sure, but there may be some things that just don't fit.
Right.
Yeah,
Any other opportunities? One once, in place. And lastly, think about threats. Nobody likes to think about threats, but that's the reality of the world we live in. There's always something lurking out there that could undermine, a lot of the positive things in a community or even the opportunities for the future. So what's out there going on that might hurt your community? What are some of the trends that you see that could be negatively impacting your community? Be trends on the social end of things. It could be technological. What's out there that's putting some forces and some pressure on your community that you think might be threatening?
Obviously, cyber is out there everywhere now, so you gotta kind of keep tabs on that. Get things from the city.
In terms of construction or?
Just cyber threats, even
cyber
get into our,
threats, okay.
the ransom stuff and all that's going on.
Yeah, and that applies to government, businesses, even individuals. It's something.
Levy limits. There's a serious threat
That's what I was just gonna say.
Money.
I think
Actually, I have it written
that
down.
a lot of people, or some people, I shouldn't say a lot, some people are just happy with status quo. And things are okay.
And that's a threat?
And that's a threat. I mean, that they don't want to, see it. It's okay. My taxes are the way they are. If you do anything, I might have to pay a little bit more, so they're just happy with just the way they are.
They
don't
wanna
grow, you
change with the
die.
Changing
Yeah.
world around them.
Right.
So,
I think the Highway 15 project is a threat. If it's
Yep.
not done right, they're gonna bypass right by us. I mean,
Highway 15
bypass,
project?
the bypass, they do that already. People coming from Milwaukee don't even make it into town.
What's been said before about being too close to the valley, I mean, there's not much you can do about that, but I think that's a threat.
The Highway 15 could be a threat because it'd be easier for people to get down to Appleton.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
That's
if
it,
it's
yeah.
not done right to
Right.
promote us,
Correct.
they're not gonna stop. They're just gonna keep
Right.
going.
and I think you mentioned about it sort of being a bedroom community. A lot of people
Right.
work in the valley and they don't spend as much time here and that can exacerbate that sometimes.
They go to the doctor there, they go to the dentist, That's,
I think the workforce is a huge threat nationwide,
Yeah.
Lack of work.
whether it be
Lack of work.
work ethic by the younger or by people or not wanting to work or just, I mean, everybody's hiring.
Inflation.
So you're the work culture or?
No, just inflation.
Oh, inflation.
Because we can't, it's gonna be difficult to do large projects with the cost of some materials that. A transformer for us cost $2,000 a couple years ago, now could be $10,000. I don't know because the manufacturer won't give me a price until it's delivered. Because there's such a steel shortage with manufacturing, the government allocated a lot of the steel to electric vehicles. So we can't even get them to manufacture transformers. If we have a catastrophic storm, this is a reality, a transformer manufacturer shipping dates are out 56 weeks for a transformer. So if you have a large storm devastate the United States somewhere and all those transformers, you're going to see two-year lead times for transformers. That's a reality.
Yeah.
And that's because of inflation. And that's just one component to our system, whether it be electric or water. So we're kind of on fragile times with, I hate to say downtown, but the downtown development, trying to get some solid numbers down and wanting to do things right are going to be difficult because what's a streetlight fixture going to be at the time that we want to do it if we can't get a cost down?
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you're kind of expanding that on just the general resiliency of the utility system of things in general because of prices, costs, even storms and weather. I mean, the frequency, the intensity of what we're having is different. So.
And it's a threat to our entire budget. When something used to cost $1 and now it's $2 or $3, we're not talking one thing, we're talking everything, whether it's fuel, employment costs, new vehicles,
Insurance.
lighting, everything. It's just, it's a huge threat.
Yeah.
You need to add the workforce shortage and there's threat. What else do we have out there for threats?
Lack of public input and knowledge. People don't.
They don't want to see what's coming.
They don't try to know, they don't.
Yeah, and then that leaves them in more of a surprise position and they're reactive and angry and upset.
And they don't even know why.
Yeah,
Lack of involvement. I mean, because we can't even fill committees and, and people are doubling up on different committees, so you don't bring in new ideas. Creating a stalemate.
a lack of civic engagement can be problematic. And we've seen that across the state in many communities or county boards as well. People just aren't willing to do it anymore.
I think lack of growth, growth as in like, there's not a RVs coming in here, so people aren't seeing that, and people, they don't equate New London as in like, hey, they're growing, let's go over there and get it done. They don't see no new growth growing as in restaurants and commercial,
Mhm.
they ain't gonna come here either, in my opinion.
Sort of a threat is the perception of no growth.
All right.
No, I would challenge that because we get around a lot. We travel the state a lot. And I would never categorize New London as that. If I drive through New London, I see things happening a lot more so than a lot of other communities.
But you're trained to look at that stuff and changes on the ground. My wife hates it when we travel because I'm always pointing this out and that out. Shut up.
I don't know the
Built that. Who
last time
doesn't-
we had a new business come into town, like like Dollar Tree, I think was probably the last one.
Yeah, all right.
Well, we've got El Patron over here
Yeah.
and we've got Emily's. So.
And them are all
Mexican
old,
restaurant
like.
down
I think he's talking
Just
new
buildings, right?
building
Like a
growth,
new-
like a
yeah,
new building
yeah.
being built,
Have a good
not
margarita?
Construction.
new construction,
Yeah.
not a business that's, went into a building we already have.
Right.
Again, a lot of this stuff is all the same. I mean, your threats, your opportunities, your strengths and your weaknesses are
Kind
awful. A
of
lot of them are intertwined with
Depends on how you
everything
look at
else.
They can
How you look at it.
flag certain ones.
A few years ago, we were all grumbling because we had 5 auto parts. Every time you got a new business, it was an auto parts store.
You're right.
Yeah.
I remember
hearing that.
sitting in that meetings listening to that.
I went to the well, it used to be the Home and Garden Show over at the arena this past week, and they call it something else now. And I bet you half the booths were rain gutters, those rain gutters.
Really?
That just tells you about the population. Getting old or lazy, or both.
Not wanting to climb ladders.
Dangerous job.
What
Other
other,
threats?
Anytime you're in a town with a river, there could be flood, so it's potential for a catastrophic flood.
I just put weather and natural.
And
disasters.
tornadoes too, obviously, in this area.
how is the terms climate change accepted around here? Sometimes it's very taboo to say that. It's something that people are skeptical of. Are they seeing changes? Results? Prefer not to talk about it?
I think that's a big talking point.
No?
We had a mild winter. That's
It's true too. The term resiliency has been used more and more when kind of talking about those long-term impacts of weather and changes to the natural environment. And so even I don't like throwing the words, climate change in a plan sometimes because it can be controversial and doesn't matter what you believe, whether it's happening or not happening, or the reasons or the causes for it. But there's definitely been changes in communities need to look at that long-term from an investment standpoint.
This area here, we don't seem to be affected by as much as the southern part of the United States as we're having all the storms, hurricanes,
Exactly.
Yeah.
tornadoes. Up here, it's been kind of la. I mean, it's been missing us to the south or missing us to the north. So you kind of get that, maybe this climate change isn't affecting up a lot.
Maybe a false sense of security a little bit too, but the impacts go both ways. It could be too much in some places and not enough in the others. And that seems to be here in the trend for winters at least, is like, it's been a number of years since we've had really good snowfall.
Other threats?
What about drugs? We did at one time see a surge of drugs in the community. And I think that's since gone a little bit, but I guess that's always a threat or a concern of the community. I mean, I remember coming into work one morning and somebody overdosed in the Quick Trip parking lot, and I never thought I would see something like that in London.
Not necessarily just the youth either.
No, at that time, it
Adults,
was pretty prominent.
working folks. Yeah.
I think we've since done a fantastic job of cleaning it up. I think Wapaka has a bigger problem now. Not saying it couldn't come back.
Well, you're right. For a while,
Okay.
there's an OD every week.
I think they're there. We're just not seeing them so much.
I mean, working in the community, when I worked on the truck, I mean, I had never seen a needle at a park. And then there for a little while, it was pretty prominent, and that was just very alarming to me when you work in a community and you're not used to seeing something like that. And then it's, all over. It was just.
They
Come on
check
down
out
by
the
us.
snow piles. Where they dump the snow. You want to look for needles.
Scary and dangerous.
Any other threats?
Before tournaments, you pick up all the needles. No.
Jay touched on a little bit before, but just fluid energy costs. I mean, gasoline, natural gas. I don't know about the electric side, but I mean, all the, you know, especially with what's going on in our nation right now. The energy costs.
Electric.
I think we touched on this one before.
Last year.
Levy limits is a
Somebody
very
will
specific and a very big one,
Turn your
but
lights off.
federal and state regulations and unfunded mandates.
16-foot base heater, I have 6 feet underground. That's electric.
You want that together or separate?
Definitely.
There's a power stove in here. Shut off because it don't work.
You can separate it. Federal and state
If you're
regulations.
using electric heat, our meter spin.
How do we go inside?
You don't want to throw in loss of local control in there while you're at it?
That too.
Something our state's been pretty good at lately.
Well, you can put loss of local control with that one.
Barely.
Yeah, loss of local control.
So if it gets 50 degrees outside, I almost got to open up the window. It's not bad, but shoot.
Or do you want unfunded mandates?
You can put it in the next one.
Speak up. Is that a threat?
Any other threats? I'll try and wrap things up here, but we don't want to cut you off if you've got a couple ideas yet you'd like to get on the board.
I just have one more weakness. The river
Past that.
obviously being a plus, but the fact that there's a floodplain, you've really got to use the term navigate some of the buildings and stuff that we do, and it kind of puts an extra burden on some of the stuff we can and can't do in those areas.
Kind of ties in with the wetlands a little bit, comment there, but is different. Second comment under first page, wetlands, mounts, barrier growth, floodplains can do that too, so.
You have to raise the whole downtown, what, Tim, 10 feet or 6 feet?
There's always that component to, you know, when I get it permitted, we gotta.
Certainly appreciate your thoughts or observations about the community. We've got a lot of stuff to work with here initially, and some of it we think is, you know, fairly common, community to community, but you've got some unique things that are very specific to your community. What we want you to do, get up and stretch your legs a little bit, though. We're gonna give you each 12 dots. 12 colored dots. We're gonna ask you to place 3 each on your top priority items under each of those categories. So under threats, we'd like you to put 3 dots on your most important items on all of the threats. Do the same with opportunity.
It doesn't matter where you put them as long as we know it.
Thank you.
You can put 2 dots on one if you feel it's most important. I'd like to do a little bit of voting because we have such a plethora of things.
Just gives us a
Kind of
little
gets it stuff to
idea.
the surface about, out of all these things, which are the most important.
3 on each.
We thinking short term.
Oops, sorry.
But I mean, this could go on and on.
Trying to use 3 on each category. Yeah.
Same thing.
Yep.
You got any black dots we can put up? there?
Common exercise.
I know where you live though, so be careful. Okay.
3 dots for strengths, 3 dots for opportunities, 3 dots for threats. Weaknesses.
obviously, we're gonna take this stuff back to the office. We're gonna type it up, summarize it, give you a sense of which items kind of rose to the surface. And I think we've got a lot of material here that we can start formulating some key questions very specific to your community that we can put in the public survey. Questions like, you want a brewery? What do you think the answer will be to that? Overwhelmingly positive? We'll try and avoid the obvious. Should have opened up Jaworski Brewing.
I got a spot for you.
Is that New London?
Chase Stone Bar.
Chase Stone Bar, of course.
That's the beer hall right there.
That people know where to go already. Strong. By the way, so unless there's some other things that you'd like to discuss or share, we appreciate your time, your energy, and the conversation. That's a good amount of talking with these items, so we're looking forward to the process here as we get into the actual plan update and start dealing with those elements, but you'll probably see some of this initial work reflected in that. So.
Yeah, this is a real good session. Thanks so much for being dedicated to it. It gives us a lot to think about. Lets us know how you folks are thinking and where we need to spend a little bit more of our time and how to wrap some of these things into the different 9 elements that we're talking about. We're always trying to create more value in the plan, try to give some direction, on the front side. So this is a pretty standard exercise, but it's passed the test of time and it does pretty good. People seem to understand it. It makes sense. Utilize your strengths, improve your weaknesses, take advantage of your opportunities, try to do what you can to avoid the threats, but it's a pretty good encapsulation of where we need to go over the next 10 years. So when we get into these elements, some of these things will crop back up and we'll spend a little bit more time.
Thank you guys for keeping us involved and making the exercise fun. I think everybody was pretty excited.
All right, we'll let you carry on with your rest of your meeting.
I think we'll kind of skip number 10, have that for another shorter meeting. All
Just
right,
real
you
quick
Dave?
on the agenda item for the IPMC, I have spent about 3 hours studying the chapter 15 and chapter 10. I'm not to a point yet where I've reconciled the other document with that, so I propose we just add that to next meeting's agenda.
Sounds good. That's upcoming
That's
agenda
all I have.
items.
Yep.
I have a bunch for the development and stuff, I would imagine. All right. Do the next meeting date.
It's like the normal meeting would be April 28th.
28th, sound all right, to everybody? Okay, next meeting date will be 28th. Take a motion for adjournment.
Also move.
I'll second